Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have head coach of Florida Atlantic Aquatics, Coach Rich Rogers. Now, Rich has coached every level of the sport from age group swimming to collegiate swimmers all the way up to master's level. Within this conversation, we touch on how he uses a scientific approach to structure his workouts and his season to ensure that each swimmer is getting exactly what they need out of each practice. We also touch on burnout within swimmers, within coaches, within parents, and also the AAU, the Amateur Athletic Union, and how it can be a gateway into USA Swimming to help keep the fun around our sport. So if you're a coach, if you're a swimmer, if you're a parent, this conversation has something in it for you. Stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you again, Coach Rich Rogers, for meeting with me today. I'm very excited to talk about your history in the sport and where you've taken it and where you are now. So, with that, you have experienced the sport from so many different angles, being an athlete, a coach at every level of the sport, and even as a swim parent yourself. So, how has that 360-degree perspective kind of shaped the way that you approach coaching today?
Well, I think the one word that comes to mind when I do that is empathy,
Mhm.
and meaning that I understand what it is to be an athlete. I also understand what it is to be a coach, what it is to be a parent. I know what they're feeling, what drives them. Really, it's one of those things when you've dealt with novice swimmers through national level swimmers and you see the full arc of the developmental process. What you try to do is really understand the different steps along the way. And I think as a coach, and the older I get, the more experience that I have, I can help vessel the parents through education and empathy and try to explain to them that this is a developmental path. This is not a destination at each one of these swim meets. So when we're starting a swim season, for example, or somebody's new to the sport, it's very much the swim parent in me that comes out and says, look, this is a process. It's not an event. Let's make sure that we understand what the final goal is. We're going to begin with the end in mind and take those experiences that I've had at every different level and try to make it to where I can speak to the person on their terms and make sure that they have a clear understanding of the picture. Because, again, having that experience, you do understand the bigger picture and you want to explain it to the people so they have a full picture of what to expect during the process.
Yeah, and it is such a journey, from learn to swim to
Mhm.
competing in your first swim meet to 10 and unders, age group, college swimming. There is so much growth and development that happens throughout that process that it's so important to not kind of oversaturate yourself within a certain like age group or a certain setting to avoid that burnout. Because I know when I was little, I just wanted to do the hardest set possible all the time. I had to kind of be held back, and they're like, no, just have fun. Like, enjoy the moment where you're at because those things will happen. And even from a parent perspective, seeing a little swimmer who has such a bright future ahead, to have someone like you to guide those parents through the process so that it is a journey and, as you said, not just a destination is so important. And something that is going to take these young swimmers so far throughout their career.
Well,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, you've built programs from the ground up. I know Florida Atlantic, it got its start in 2022, so just after COVID. When you first step into a new program, what's your process for getting things moving in the right direction?
Great question. And again, it's beginning with the end in mind. Where do we want to be? Who are we as a program? How do we want to do it? So really, you're going to take a look at the resources that you have in front of you, whether it's pool time, parents, different things that you have involved, and then say, okay, well, where do we want to be in 5 years? And then work backwards from there. And really, again, it comes down to the educational process. So the development of a brand new program comes with a clear vision in mind, and you want to like project that vision out and then attract people that are part of your tribe, so to speak.
Mhm.
And they come in there, and then you're preaching, this is where we're going to be, this is how we're going to do it, and you explain the steps along the way. I think a lot of times, I know when I was a young coach and I was starved for lanes, let's say, and
Yeah.
I would just try to grow, 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 grow. How many more pools can I get? What can I do? And I think that unregulated growth is even worse than no growth.
Mhm.
So the wisdom with age is that, okay, we're going to have a growth process, but it's going to be structured and it's going to be something that we can then take step by step, one by one, to ensure that we're on the path to get us from A to B to C to D. Let's not try to jump to Z
Mhm.
right away. Let's make sure that we're there. So with Florida Atlantic, we came in and we had some pretty good resources being located in beautiful South Florida, 50-meter pool, an athletic facility. So it wasn't rec facility. We had requisite pools time.
Yeah.
And it's a small team and it's still a small team. But again, that's by design because we don't want to grow so fast, so big that we're just putting out fires rather than developing athletes. So I think if I was good to give the best advice to somebody starting a program, it would be slow down,
Mhm.
understand where you want to be, take it one step at a time, master that one phase before you move on to phase two, three, and four.
Yeah. And it's so difficult, but it's such good advice to just, slow down and enjoy the process and look at the moment that you're in. And also that open communication. If there is structure, you can point to exactly where you are within your program, exactly where you want to be, and communicate that with the parents or with other coaches in the area and show them
Absolutely.
that this is what we're building and this is why it's working. And again, that open communication is just so important because it also lays that foundation for trust, which allows programs to run so smoothly from start all the way to, 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
What was it about Florida Atlantics that made you want to be a part of it, and what excites you most about the future?
Wow. I wanted to stay in Florida.
Yeah.
Um, I absolutely love the state of Florida, as we both know. And really, again, it's the ability to have freedom to do what we need to do. And again, having the resources, the
Hmm.
location, the demographics of the area fit well within swimming. And again, just really like a blank slate. I love developing from a blank slate. I've done in the past where you jump into programs and there's stuff there and you have to rebuild a culture.
Yeah.
But starting a culture is so much easier than starting to try to impact a culture from say year 10, 12, 20.
Hmm.
So blank slate, beautiful opportunity, great people, freedom to do what I want. And you know what also is I think that having a college environment with an age group program and integrating the two of those so the kids can see once again the final product. And then also having a postgraduate opportunity for some of these kids that may have started late. Maybe they develop by the time they're a senior in college and they're like, I still want to go on to trials and beyond. To have that opportunity to have a postgraduate program in addition to a high level age group program was probably something that was very big in my decision to come to Florida Atlantic. I know that many years ago, USA Swimming tried to develop these centers of excellence. And I think sometimes by doing it organically, you can bring people to it. And if I were a post grad and I had a couple more years and I wanted to do something, maybe coming to Boca and
Doesn't
training at a
sound
high
too
level is
bad.
not such a bad way to go at it. So we're looking at doing that. But again, phase one, phase two,
Yeah.
phase three. I'm not going to jump into the post grad. Here we are, bring everybody down until we establish what we've established.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I'm biased towards the state of Florida. It's a hot spot for fast swimming and beautiful pools. And also that post-grad opportunity that you spoke about. I mean, that's something that is so just exciting for young swimmers to again see a college atmosphere, to see like collegiate swimmers in action and know that like that's what we want to strive for. But also knowing that like you have to reach these certain goals to get there just helps keep you
Sure.
motivated and keep everyone on track. So, you know, if I was a little bit younger, I might go back
Come
and
on
get
down.
a little bit removed now.
Come on down.
I know. The older I get, I do miss being in the water a lot more. And, you kind of look back and you realize all that swimming provided you. And so
Right.
giving back to the sport is just so much fun and such a great opportunity. Coaches all over the nation, they structure their practices differently. Some do high mileage. I came from a very intense yardage background. Some are
Yes.
more focused on strength training and speed work. You recently gave a very informative talk about turning 3S data into performance in the pool and what that looks like specifically for your program. So, how has that framework shaped your team? And can you walk us through what that progression looks like across the season?
Sure. And 3S or Super Sports Systems has been the backbone of what I've done for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And basically, Dr. Sergey Belev came over here in the 90s with a treasure trove of information from the former Soviet Union, where they did nothing but try to defeat us and humiliate us on the competitive schedule arena.
Yeah.
Which they did when I was younger. And he had all that data and he wanted to put it to use. And he's done a great job of doing that. But there's sports science and then there's applied sports science.
Mhm.
And basically, what I try to do, again, with the educational process, is teach the swimmers, the parents, and the coaches on staff the scientific backbone and how do we do things. And, you mentioned strength training and, US RPT and all these different ways. And each one of those is really a tree in the forest.
Mhm.
Every one of those energy systems is important. So really what 3S does is allows me to create a group environment and create different, like a distance group, a mid-distance group, a sprint group, let's say. And I do structure my age group programs more like college programs, but
Yeah.
more on that another time. So we go ahead and we do those things and I create the season and then I get all the energy zones that they need for each phase of the season. But the good part about it is then I can individualize that to each one of the swimmers inside of the group by putting their starting time, their goal time, and then get an individualized approach for a group setting. So 3S really gives me the scientific structure and backbone, and then myself as a coach has to be more artistic to deliver it. Because if you just take the science and say, okay, you have to do 24 200s ready go and hold this pace,
Yeah.
you're going to lose a lot. So
Yep.
we have to create, especially in this generation, it's a little bit different. So we
Yeah,
have
we
to
want
make it a little
things.
more palatable.
Yeah. We want things quick. No, at the swim nerd in me, when I watched the talk, was just in awe at all of the information that you can kind of take in over the course of a season, and especially how you can individualize it for each swimmer. And it makes those goals all that more realistic for each swimmer. So you have a sense of accomplishment even within a season where you may not be striving
Absolutely.
for best times at every single meet. And so, as I said, one of the very unique aspects is how you can individualize it. So, how do you balance the needs of each swimmer while also maintaining that team culture?
Absolutely. And one of the things, and you hit on it, basically talking about mid-season and different things, and especially when dealing with age group swimmers and age group parents,
Mhm.
because the one thing that you hear on the pool deck everywhere in the country, probably everywhere in the world in all the languages, did you do your best time?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're a little kid and your coach is saying, look, it's the beginning of the season. I want you to focus in on not breathing into the turn, not breathing off of the turn. I want you to do a great back half. We're focusing on distance per stroke. And then you get to mom and dad after you talk to the coach, and coach said, I don't care if you didn't do a best time. I love the fact that you took 17 strokes and you didn't breathe. High five, way to go. And then they go back to their parents and they go, did you do a best time? And they're like, no. And then you lose that. So you have to really individualize that for them. So getting back to, best times, each set, each send off inside of the set itself becomes a target. So we individualize if we have 24 200s, not that we're going to do that, and Joey's time is 206 and Sally's is 208. We're going to make sure that they understand what that is and they're holding their individual pace times. And each send off is then a test set, so to
Mhm.
speak. So it really gives them a target each and every time because I know that when I was swimming, a lot of times it was slow, medium, fast. Okay, go smooth, go a little faster. Now step up on the block and go fast. So you don't really know. Okay, get your heart rate. What is it? Yeah, what is it supposed to be? 160? Yeah. But times are times. And
Yeah.
if you know you're supposed to hold those times and you're individually responsible for holding those times, then you get it. The one other good thing about this is so many times I've seen where the person who wins the set
Mhm.
gets rewarded. Like, great job, John, you won all that. But did John hold his pace? Or did Bobby hold his pace in lane three, even though he was a fourth person? So you can celebrate the people that are actually doing what you're asking them to do and create a culture of individual responsibility based on number one, know thy pace, and number two, hold thy pace. And
Yep.
then once you hold it and know it, you're inside of those individual energy zones, and then you're going to have success later on in the season.
No, as you said, I mean, there's so many elements to swimming and there's so many data points that you can collect. And a lot of
Hmm.
them may be objective, some of them may be subjective. I know you mentioned heart rate, but everyone's heart rate is a
Right.
little bit different. I'd be sitting there panting and someone else would be like 130. And so
Right.
it's so unique and so just amazing to have such just you have your times. This is what you need to go for your goals and try your best. And everyone around you is also trying their best for their own set of data points. And
Exactly.
so as a young swimmer, as you said, you mentioned the slow, medium, fast, like warm up, they're like slow down a little bit, main set, go as
Yep.
fast as you can. But there wasn't really a time that you had to strive for. Sure, I had an arbitrary number in my head. I was like, I want to break a minute on this one. But you have no idea what breaking a minute does for your season. So having
Exactly.
those times and knowing that this is the time in order to do this at this point in the season is so critical. I mean, especially from an age group standpoint where, you may drop time every meet, but you still have that end goal at the season in mind.
One of the other things I'll jump in really quick on that because that's a
Yeah.
very important point is you have people that are truly want to be great. Like you were saying, I want to do this, I want to do this, but then you're in the wrong energy zone.
Hmm.
And if you do that too soon and too early in the season, you might peak around week 8. And
Yeah.
then by the end of the season, see people with shoulder injuries, you see people, having all these issues because they didn't hold the right energy zone. And I try to slow down my high performers and then say, okay, great. If this seems too slow, how many strokes are you taking? How many kicks are you taking off the wall? So you do the data points. We want to have a 360-degree spiral view of what swimming is. So we don't just focus again on the time, but the proper time with the proper technique, with the
Yeah.
proper stroke counts.
Yeah, and technique is absolutely vital and critical, especially from a young age group standpoint, because that is the
Sure.
technique that you're going to hold when you're trying to go fast. So, introducing how many dolphin kicks you need to do off a wall, how your breaststroke pullout should look like, how far you're aiming to
Exactly.
go, and then also trying to incorporate that speed element at the right time in the season. Like I said, my brain was just like in awe and I was just geeking out over all of the data. And I was like, I need to go back in the pool and I need to look at mine. And I was like, you're not training anymore, slow down. Um, you've emphasized again that it's not just a tool for training, but it's also an educational piece for swimmers, parents, and all of your staff members as well. So, what does that education look like in practice, and why is it so important for that long-term success for swimmers who, are aiming to reach national teams or just swimming college or wherever their goals may take them?
Well, we've said a word earlier in this, and it was program, program, program. FAA, what's your program like? How do you run your programs? And what I have found in my years in the sport is that so many times clubs are personality driven rather than systemic.
Hmm.
And in order to have a larger organization, you need to have a systemic program in place that can cross pools or lanes or groups. If coach A is saying, X, and then they go to, the next group and they're saying Y, and then the next group Z, you don't have a program.
Yeah.
And really having that education says, okay, staff, this is what we do, this is how we do it. Basically, break it down into 4 elements. You have the physiological, psychological, tactical, and technical areas, and then you can break those down. I call it a level system, and I do that so that way every parent and every coach understands these are the elements for the first level. These are the elements for the second level. We're not going to bump somebody up to level 4 because their physiological is here, but their psychological is down here. So again, it's that program that you really have to instill in the education for the parents. Now, I've had some very fast age group swimmers, and one of the reasons is they're not just physiologically fast. They have the other technical abilities, the psychological abilities, and that's all part of education. And we have to make sure that especially when you have somebody who's gifted, that they don't just become the world's greatest 25 and 50 sprinter at the PALs or PCLs or, fill in the blank country club league. And then when they get to 13, 14 and they're looking at 200s, they fall apart. So
Hmm.
we have to make sure again that the educational components are in there so they see that big picture at the end, the parents see the big picture at the end, the staff sees the big picture at the end. So we're introducing those elements to them early on in their career and make that part of the educational process.
Yeah, and I mean, having that open communication and saying to the parents, this is why your swimmer is right
Totally
here
agree.
within our group. This is why this swimmer is right here. Having
Yes.
that open and honest conversation with parents, because parents can be your biggest supporter, or sometimes,
Hmm.
they can come at you. And so
Yes.
having that open communication and having a program in place where you can just simply point to the structure, say, hey, this is why
Absolutely.
Johnny or Sarah is right here, helps alleviate so much stress for not only the coaches, the swimmers, and also the parents as well.
Yes.
From your experience, what kind of breakthroughs have you seen once athletes, parents, or coaches have fully bought into the system?
Oh my gosh. I use this, and I give all credit to my pastor at my church in Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Mhm.
And basically, it's the all-in factor. And what he did one day was he had somebody stand up straight. And they said, standing up straight, you're 0% committed to sitting. Sitting down, you're 100% committed. And you start out at 100%, then you go to 5%, then you go to 10. And by the time you get to 90, your legs are shaking, 91, 92, 95. And then when you get to 100, it's just easy. So the breakthrough is getting to that 100% in where no longer are you forced to get up in the morning, but you want to get up. So the way that I call it is self-propelled versus self-controlled. When you're self-controlled, you whoosh, I got to do it. Time to make the donuts for us older people. You got to get up. You got to get up. But when you're self-propelled, you get up on your own. You have 100%. We have no minimum requirements. I don't have that in my group. I feel if you get 80, if you ask for 80 or 90%, you get 80 or 90%. But
Mhm.
my job is to inspire them to want to do 110%. And that is the breakthrough because once you get somebody in and they're not worried about missing a football game on a Friday night, but they're invested into, oh my gosh, I'm traveling to France on a team with, I'm representing my country. I'm doing all these amazing things. You don't see it anymore as a sacrifice. I see these shirts all the time. I can't because I have swim practice or whatever, and my soul just drops
You put
because
it
I'm
on the
like, no, you
shirt.
you have to do it. This is great. So the breakthroughs that I have are once they're 100% in and the parents are 100% in and the staff is 100% in because you have to have all of that. It's that pyramid. If all those people aren't in, if the coach is not willing to get up in the morning, but the
Mhm.
kids are and the parents are, the kids and the parents are gone. If the kids don't want to get in, if the parents don't want, so we really have to have everybody doing it. And when that happens, that's when the magic happens. Just things just explode organically.
No, absolutely. And I mean, especially at the grassroots level, when it does take that village of commitment.
Yes.
I know you see your national team members, your Olympians, but they were age group swimmers once and they had, their parents, their coaches behind them. And so, having that buy-in from parents and coaches, I think at the age group level is often overlooked from
Sure.
where we develop our national team and our Olympians today. Because I know my parents, some mornings they were 100 and I was 90, but seeing that they were 100 makes you
Yes.
also want to strive to be that 100%. So surrounding
Absolutely.
yourself with those people that are going to make you better and with a program that also has that buy-in from such a young age is huge. And as you said, it is a sacrifice, but what swimming gives you and
Mm.
what it can give you is so incredible. And, I don't consider any of it a sacrifice. It's
No.
this is what I want to do, and it's providing me so many fun and amazing opportunities to grow in more than just the sport of swimming. You've
Totally.
worked with swimmers across the spectrum from kids starting out to Olympians and even master swimmers. How do you adjust your coaching style depending on the swimmers' ages, abilities, or their goals?
Excellent question. And again, it starts with interviewing them. What are their goals?
Hmm.
You cannot have a cookie cutter approach saying, okay, I have an 11-year-old that's a double A time. I'm going to put them here. I have a master swimmer who's going to this. I have this person, because then you're imposing it on them and
Yeah.
then you're not getting the buy-in. So really, it starts with an interview. What do you want to do? Why are you here? Why are you getting up? And I always ask my athletes to say why. Why? Ask me questions. Why are we doing this? But I have to ask them questions. Why? And once I find that little center in them that wants to do something or whatever the spark that is, then I can kind of feed them in. So really, it's an individualized approach. Now, that being said, you have to have the program to back it up,
Yeah.
to give them the structure that they need to get to that goal. But really, I don't care if it's a 36-year-old master swimmer who swam Division 3 and was a minute freestyler for a female, and she just wants to lose a little weight, and maybe I'll swim at a meet, and then later on she's at 55 because she's doing doubles and
Yeah.
everything else, and having all this fun and enjoying it. Or if it's a 9-year-old who just wants to, go from double A to triple A or make a state cut. Really, what is it that drives you? And I think as coaches, I think a lot of times we're on our perch and we're pushing down what our program is.
Yeah.
I think the program is there, and then our job is to find the motivation and then really try to feed into that and then have them go into the program. So the program supports the individual doesn't support the program. And I think that's whether you're 9, 19, or 99.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially because not every age group swimmer is gonna be an Olympian. And,
Right.
you know, from the grassroots level, everyone deserves and needs that individual attention to reach their goals, whether it is becoming an Olympian or whether it's simply to just have fun and drop time at their summer league meet. But also allowing these swimmers to come to you and share their goals and where they want to take the sport gives them a sense of buy-in because they are now also involved in the process with it. It's not just
Exactly.
a coach telling them, this should be your goal time. You should be here. You need to do this. It's no, this is my goal. And so I'm taking accountability for that process and where it's going to get me.
Hmm. Totally agree with that.
You've said that building a sense of family and also fun is at the heart of your programs. Why do you think some clubs lose that as they grow, and how do you keep it central within your culture?
Wow. One of the words that I coined many, many years ago was swamily. And really, it's a swim family. It's about that. And it's the empathy. And there's times when you really have to think about it. If you take care of the individual, the team will take care of itself.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times people are so concerned about how the team is doing that they lose focus on how the individual is doing.
Hmm.
There's many times in my career where I would pull somebody out of a junior national meet where we could score extra points or whatever because they had a bigger meet later. It's like, you know what? The individual's got to take precedent over the team score. And then, eventually those team scores happen because you've taken care of them and everybody rises. So having a sense of that family structure where you're concerned and you really feel strongly about each and every one of your swimmers and their families and their parents, and you get to know them as humans, not just as
Yeah.
numbers. You're not a 55 breaststroker. You're Cheryl, and you really want to, do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to help you get there. And swimming is a vehicle to bigger and better things. And that what you're going to learn in this process is going to help you 10, 20, 30 years down the line. And just having that just culture and that love for each one of your individuals, I think makes the process better. And also, as you know, it is a family. And, we know each other for decades. And, some of your best friends that we all have as swimmers are people that we've been involved with. And think about it. This is what I tell some of my swimmers a lot when they're like thinking about this with competitors. I'm like, who else knows what we go through day in and day out than your competitors? We are a very small elite fraternity of humans that get to do these great things. Let's celebrate the other people. Now, when we step up on the block, do we want to do better? Sure.
Yeah.
But we have empathy with them too because they get up in the morning and they do the same stuff. And so, really, yeah, it's just about family. It's about fun. Again, I talked about the 24 200s. You have to make everything a little bit more enjoyable, making it also fresh and new. Like I'll create
Yeah.
new sets. This morning we did, I called it, what did I call it? 45 40s or whatever. We're starting at the flags. We're doing 40 yards, dead man float, but you had to go fast into the wall and five
Yeah.
minimum body dolphins, 5 strokes fast. So there was the five and those were the 40s and just doing different things where you're keeping them engaged and having fun with it. So it's not totally repetitive. So yeah, have fun. We don't get up in the morning to be miserable. We don't get up in the morning to do this. We get up in the morning to have fun, enjoy the process, and high five at the end. And I guess I'm more John Wooden than John Madden, and just have fun with it.
Yeah. And I mean, especially in a sport such as swimming, where the practices can be monotonous, having a sense of new and
Yes.
you're still working on the same techniques, you're still working on the same processes, the same energy goals, but just incorporating it a little bit differently goes such a long way, especially with age group swimmers. I know when I was involved in coaching 8-year-olds, their brains would turn off after a 25. And so keeping it fresh and fun is so important. And also, you mentioned something earlier where the individual within your team will help build a team. So
Sure.
having that trust and also that respect that goes both ways. If you see someone and you're involved in the club and you see someone being pulled out of a relay, you know exactly why. And
Yeah,
so it's not seen as something that's bad, but more so we're celebrating that athlete's successes and their goals. And so that's such a key culture to a team environment that is only going to help and build something so special for the years to come.
sure.
Many of your age group swimmers have gone on to national teams and Olympic teams. From your perspective, what are the non-negotiables for long-term success in a sport like swimming?
Fun, enjoyment, process, knowledge. I termed a phrase many years ago with one of our swimmers. I call it Einstein speed. And in order to be at the elite level, you have to know more than most of the coaches on deck. You have
Mhm.
to not only understand the energy zones, you have to understand your paces, you have to understand the technique, the tactics, the how you do this, what do you do behind your pre-race routines, everything. You need the whole encyclopedia. So really, what you have to enjoy the process. And then you have to have those goals and you have to be knowledgeable about the sport. If you're a student of the sport and you're fully engaged and you called yourself a swim nerd, that's the perfect terminology because if you're a swim nerd and you're watching, I have these kids, they'll come up to me and they're like, Coach Rich, I was watching this the other day and I saw this guy and he was only doing his body dolphin and he didn't do the flutter kick. And how does that work? And I'm like, this is great. This is fun. And we'll sit there and we'll analyze it and we'll like, well, let's give it a shot. Let's time you for a 15. Let's see if that works best for you. And that is what gets people to the next level. And I have seen, unfortunately, talented swimmers go to the wayside because number one, they didn't have that parent coach support
Mhm.
and they were just being pushed to, 25s and 50s. Hooray, you won. Did you do your best time? Yes, I did. Okay, now you're 13, do a 200. Dead. And then I've seen people that were good, they worked hard, but they didn't understand the sport. And maybe they would go too fast on their first 50 of a 200, or they didn't have the right tactic and they just didn't want that. They were so, pressurized. They didn't relax and try to have fun. So really, it's that balancing act of fun, swimming knowledge, grit. Grit is
Yeah.
a, major part of everything because, I'm sitting here smiling. This is fun and happy, but man, there are days when you just have to get down and go.
Mhm.
It's not all, roses and, rainbows. You have to sometimes get down and dirty. And if you have to hold, 24 100s on 106 butterfly in your age group or whatever, and it's just like you just get down and go, and you have to find that thing in you. So there's a part of you that has to have the grit, the part of you that has to be an 8-year-old, part of you that has to be a 38-year-old, and you
Yeah.
just meld that all together and then have the support system and a fun environment and know that the people around you care. I think that is it because you can't fake sincerity and they have to know. And as a coach, we have to put a program together that says, you know what? These people care. They get up every morning, not because they have a job to do. They get up for this, and that helps them buy into it and go to the next level, I
Yeah.
think.
No, swimming is such an intricate sport. And I mean, you look at two swimmers and they'll train completely differently. You look at two swimmers that swim the same event and they'll swim it completely differently. And so having that sense of knowledge within the sport, but also knowledge within your body and also
Mhm.
trusting yourself is so huge and so important. And so having a program such as yours where you build these key factors and you reach these certain points, you can look back and you can trust your training, not just because you're like, I did this set one time and I went really fast, and so that means that I should go fast again. But it's the months and the years of the hard work that leads up to the moment to where you can trust yourself, but also trust your coaches and trust your parents and trust your teammates around you. And swimming looks like an individual sport. You dive in, and at the end of the day, it's the black line and you. But it is so team oriented and having like minded individuals around you that uplift you and help keep you accountable. At the end of the day, there were some sets where I absolutely did not want to do it. But knowing
Right.
that my teammates, they counted on me and they were around me doing the same thing, I knew that I was going to do it no matter, what happened if I got out and I was out of breath or if I had a great workout. It's that team culture that really helps propel you forward in the sport.
You said something, I want to jump in on that. There's two things that I talk about with my team, and that is the difference between belief and knowing.
Hmm.
And you can believe something, but then you can have a crisis of faith. But if you know something, then you're going to step up. And I'm no what ifs. So the difference between self-confidence is, I can do this versus self-efficacy, which is I can know it. The
Yeah.
only way that you have self-efficacy is if you look back before you step up on the block and you go, you know what? I came every morning. I did all the dry land. I did the stretches. I ate right. I know I'm going to do this. I held my paces. So knowing and hoping are two different things. And I want to impart upon my swimmers at the end of the season, when you step up on that block, there's no what ifs. You step up knowing that you did it. You don't worry every day, is the sun going to come up? No, the sun's going to come up. You don't believe, you don't hope. Okay. You want to step up on that block like the sun is coming up and you're going to hit that time that you worked for all season long. So, yes, knowing and having that culture around you to help provide that lift when you have to be gritty is huge.
Yeah, and I mean, especially from also a developmental standpoint, a lot of young swimmers are just innately confident in their abilities because, they haven't really experienced certain elements within the sport or within the world
Sure.
that will kind of knock you down or shake you a little bit. And
Right.
so when you start to develop also as a swimmer, but also as a person, having that foundation that you can look back on and still remain confident in your training and not waver and knowing that you can do this is huge, and it will take you so much further, as I said, you know, just developmentally knowing that you trust yourself and you trust others around you.
Yes, absolutely.
Communication with families is obviously very important to you. I mean, we've touched on it a lot within this conversation. So, what does a healthy and effective partnership between parents and coaches look like to you?
you know, this has had to change over the course of years,
Hmm.
and it's still a developmental situation that you're dealing with. There was a time in my career where I posted everything online. I had like one of the first websites in the 90s, and I had parents saying, what is this interweb? It's going to go away. And, why are we doing this? This is a flash, Rich. Why, well, you're always trying all these tech things.
Yeah.
And then from that, I went to, sending emails out a lot. And my emails became extremely long. And I got feedback from the parents saying, thank you, but I don't have 20 minutes to read your emails. And, then I tried like short podcasts or, little Wednesday wisdoms or whatever. So I try to find out what works for each one of my teams, whether it's a Facebook group or something, and just try to communicate where they are.
Yeah.
And, just try not to just impose. Once again, don't impose what I want. Find out what your clients need or what your customers need or your swamily needs and try to meet them there. So we're still developing what's the best for FAA right now, but the communication process has to be a number one thing. And you can probably tell I like one-on-one communication.
Mhm.
So, getting the parents and sitting them down and saying, okay, look, here's where we are. Yeah, wonderful that, John is doing this, but here's the bigger picture. Let's just take a look at this. So communicating on a mass level is totally different than communicating on a smaller group level, which is different than communicating on a one-to-one level. And I think the most effective way to communicate to your team as a whole is all three. So
Yeah.
really, what am I doing from a general mass thing? And then also communicating to the community as a whole, because I think that team A, team B, team C are all probably different cultures. And I think that a rising tide lifts all boats, and we can bring a lot more people into the sport
Yeah.
without just thinking, okay, there's only 100 kids in this area. Let's bring more people. Like if a person likes my style, great. I've had people leave my team because they say, you're too nice.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
oh, absolutely.
You don't yell
Hit my
enough?
kid if you want. Oh, I've had multiple people, especially when I was younger and I didn't have the level of success. Oh no, you're too nice. My kid can't go swim fast for you. You have to be tough. But you're going to attract people that want to be part of your tribe. So I
Mhm.
think mass communication to the community will help bring people in that are like-minded, and then communicate to the whole group, communicate to the section, and then communicate one-on-one is an important thing. And then communicating with the staff too
Yeah.
is important to make sure that you keep the message the same throughout the course of the developmental process for the kids and the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, over the course of, I mean, even the last 10 years, technology and communication has changed tenfold. And how people like to communicate, since there are so many channels, is so personalized and individualized to each parent, each swimmer, each team. I know we
Hmm.
have Zoom calls, we have text messages, we have emails, we have cell phones, we have work phones. It seems like I have my watch on where I get
Right.
notifications. And so having that one-on-one communication, though, there's nothing like it, because that's where you truly get to know someone. You get to know their family, you get to know, maybe this is why Johnny is having a rough week. Something happened within a different source within his life. And so having that communication with the parents, how they see fit and how they want to communicate, helps build that trust. And as I spoke about earlier, just that respect that will propel a program forward.
Absolutely.
Looking back, what's one of the hardest lessons that you've had to learn as a coach, and how has it changed the way that you lead today?
Oh my gosh. And I think I said this earlier, it's growth.
Hmm.
Unregulated growth. There was a point in time where I lost a facility and I my team got decimated
Hmm.
and it was hard, and then we had to rent some pool space and got kicked out of that, and it was just so I got this little 4 lanes in a Jewish community center, and then I was like hungry for lane space, and every pool that came up I said yes, I'll take it because
Yeah.
I needed that. And then I would put people on there, or that it wasn't a program at that point. It was just a collection of lanes that I would put people on, and then it just went haywire. And then I'm dealing with problems. So I think when I'd said earlier, the structured growth that comes from purely failing and falling on my face, doing it absolutely wrong. And that was the biggest thing that, and I think also, and this is, personal reflection, moving around a little bit too much. I think, staying in one place. If I could go back and tell, young Rich what to do, it'd be just like, stay put,
Just
relax.
settle down.
Just relax. You're fine, and just stay there. I mean, some of the most successful programs long term are ones that where the coach is there decade upon decade upon decade and does this. So, yes, while it's great to build multiple programs over time, I think that yeah, maybe just sticking put is a good thing, and then also just try not to be so big. Just enjoy what you have, and then when you're ready, then grow, and but do it in a structured fashion. So that's what old Rich is trying to do that young Rich didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. People as coaches, we look at coaches and we think that there should just, again, be this trajectory forward. And it's the same way with anything in life. We expect you start at the bottom and then you grow each year and then you grow each year and then you grow each year. And then it's just this perfect little line up until the
Yes.
end. But ultimately, that's not reality with anything that happens in life. There are going to be bumps in the road, but like coming back stronger and learning from mistakes is so important. And I always say, like, you don't fail unless you quit, unless you
Yes.
just completely stop doing what you're trying to do. And as I said, I think as coaches, we expect teams to just have this upward trajectory, but having those lessons is only going to help move the team and the program forward for the years to come. You've also seen situations where kids will drop out of the sport too early.
Mhm.
What are the warning signs of a struggling environment, and how can coaches or clubs turn that around?
What are the warning signs? My God, there's so many little red flags that
Yeah.
become a big red flag. And number one is not wanting to go. I mean, that's pretty basic and obvious. It's like, oh, I don't want to go today. Why don't you want to go? Oh, something's going on. Well, their motivation has totally died. What are the reasons for that is more important than that. And that could be, is there too much pressure to win? Is there something happening inside of the workout environment itself that's stopping them from doing that? Are they looking at the maturity level of other swimmers around them and
Yeah.
doing one of my, the big C word, which is compare? And oh my gosh, I used to beat this person and now this person, gained 6 inches and they're destroying me. And you're no longer looking at your personal best in your trajectory and your arc. You're looking at other people.
Yeah.
And I think also, parents and coaches can do that as well. They can, look at the trajectory that somebody has and don't understand that, the metamorphosis of a human is kind of like, caterpillar in a cocoon. It's not, hey, great, I'm going to be a butterfly. They like, I can imagine the bones sticking out. It's really hard in there. And then they come out and they're a butterfly. So while they're going through that process, it's really important to, again, empathize with them and let them know and educate and say, look, I understand that this is a hard time. And you know what? Everybody here, Summer's been through this. We've all been through this. No good movie starts out with, and they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
You're going to have different chapters, and it's not going to always be pretty, but we believe in you. We believe in your long-term process. Let's get through this. So the signs really are, not wanting to go, maybe not caring about performances at a swim meet at all, stepping up on the block, maybe not warming up, warming down, not eating properly, being totally distracted, saying words like, I really didn't try when
Yeah.
they're, get out of the pool and don't do their best time. So you really want to look at those warning signs and then try to really delve into, why, not just stop it. I see that a lot with parents. So you stop it. Now you get back there and you try your best. Okay. And then the kid goes back and does the same, but they're not going to try their best if we don't know the underlying cause. So we
Mhm.
have to be, psychological detectives. Why are you feeling this way? Is there something that happened? And it takes a little bit of investigating tools, but not caring, not showing up, not trying, being oblivious. Really, those are the major warning signs that I see with the kid that's ready to call it quits and hang up their goggles.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many elements to being a coach that have almost nothing to do with writing workouts.
Sure.
We have these young individuals who are going to grow throughout the trajectory of the sport, but also the trajectory of their life. And so having someone that cares about the why is so important and someone that cares to get to the root of it. And that's ultimately, from my perspective, in my opinion, what's going to get people to continue to show up and to buy into the program and to buy into the sport is knowing that the people around you actually care and they don't just want you to, stop it or just come to practice and do this set. It's understanding that we care about your development, we care about your growth in the sport, we care about where you take it, whether it's, you know, junior Olympics. I think it's Florida age groups now, all the way up
Right.
to if you want to go to Olympic trials. It's treating each individual swimmer as the individual swimmer that they are. Because a warning sign in me was completely different than a warning sign in my brother or my sister. And so, also knowing your swimmer so you can also diagnose those warning signs as warning signs and not just something to kind of monitor for the future.
You know what? Before you jump into the next one, I just want to, you said the word over and over again, care, care, care. And there's an old adage in coaching, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And, that's so true. And especially when the warning signs pop up, you just can't say, get in and go, get over it, walk it off. You really have to show them how much you care to get them through that. So you're absolutely right on that, Summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
From your perspective, what does age group swimming in the US need most right now to keep kids engaged and
Oh.
motivated?
You are coming into my lane right here.
Yep.
I really think that USA Swimming does such an amazing job on the upper end. And,
Yeah.
you go into trials and everything is probably one of the greatest experiences, especially in the past few trials. It's just been amazing. It's like going to a lightning game. It's just wonderful, versus the old days. Um, but the grassroots is something that we need to really, really adjust. And over the last few years, I've been working more with the Amateur Athletic Union to try to bring people into the sport because the way that I look at it, we need something that's fun, fast, and family friendly. Taking, a parent of a 9-year-old who's just new to the sport, they got out of swim lessons, they understand the basics of the four strokes. Now we're going to take them to a 3-day meet. Then maybe if they have a brother and a sister, one who's 13, one who's 8, they're going to be there all day long in the Florida sun. By Friday night, they're looking great. By Sunday afternoon, they're typing in basketball team near me because they no longer want to be involved in swimming.
Yeah.
So what we need is to, and it's expensive. Let's be honest. I mean, it's can cost you a lot of money. And if you have multiple kids, if it's $100 to register for swimming, and then hundreds of dollars a month for your training fees, and then your tech suits and your travel and the meets and it just gets so overwhelming.
Mhm.
So I feel we need that bridge between, novice through the junior Olympic level or age group championship level that gets really overlooked in many parts of the country. So we've done in the past here and in the Tampa Bay area, AAU type meets where kids that are joining the program out of our swim lesson program will become AAU swimmers. And we will have these 1 hour mini meets. They don't cost a whole bunch of money to run. You don't need officials and all these scary things going on. You're handing out ribbons, you're giving out icy pops, you're having music going. The whole experience takes, a couple of hours from warm up to warm down, and you're just having fun and you're announcing, at least I did, I would announce like, okay, and now we're doing freestyle. And in freestyle, we want to look at the underwater. And you're teaching the kids and the parents at the same time
Yeah.
that you're having fun with it. And maybe the whole afternoon costs $20
Yeah.
and you're keeping the kids in the sport and registering them costs like $30. And it's just something that we can bring more people in. And I just want to emphasize that I don't think it's a USA Swimming versus AAU versus YMCA. I think it's a rising tide again that lifts all boats. The more people we get in at the
Yeah.
grassroots level, the more they're going to say, hey, we developed and now we're qualifying for Florida Gold Age Group Championships or whatever it's called. And we need to be part of USA Swimming. So that's only going to grow the list of people that are going to be later on the Fink family that are going to, have that ability to represent the country and go on to bigger and better things. But if we cauterize the development at the lower end, then the pie is going to get a lot smaller. And there's another area, and that is when we get into 15, 16, let's say for boys
Hmm.
and you get out of your 14 and under age group championship. And in a lot of places, your 15-year-olds are going against 25-year-olds who are
Yeah.
post grads at a sectional meet, and you're 172nd out of, 202nd with no possibility for a second swim. What's your motivation to say, you know what, I got to get up in the morning and do this versus going to the football game? So you have to then find different meets, and Doug is great at that with ISCA to have these different meets. And AAU has their Junior Olympics in the summer, which is single age group. So you find these opportunities for the kids at the vulnerable stages. You asked earlier about what do you identify? 15, 16 for boys, 13, 14 for girls.
Yeah.
These are the vulnerable ages, and how do we vessel them from that stage to the other? And how do we vessel people from swim lessons to the top 10% of age group swimmers? And that's where I think organizations like YMCA, AAU, Boys and Girls Club, whatever it is, can fill the gap that USA Swimming is not doing until we maybe address that as a national governing body and say, all right, what can we do to mimic that? I know they started with Block Party,
Mhm.
but there's other ways to go, and I think supporting these endeavors and making it easier, making it fun, fast, and family friendly is the way to grow the base.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the sport of swimming as a whole, like we should all be working together to further
Yes.
our sport because it is a difficult sport. I mean, it requires a lot of training, it requires a lot of focus. It's not something that is easy, especially if you want to take it to the highest levels of our sport. And
Mhm.
so the burnout and the dropout, especially for sports that may seem more exciting or, don't require maybe as many hours of training or of practice, we need to find things to keep our swimmers involved in the sport as you said, at those vulnerable ages where they might just go find something new to do. And as I mentioned earlier, we don't want to be fighting. We should all be uplifting each other to build
Exactly.
this base that will become our national team, that will become our Olympic team, that will become our world record holders. And
Mhm.
so, could you speak a little bit more about the pipeline from AAU to USA Swimming and how that is involved within your program?
Sure. Many years ago, the AAU Junior Olympics was basically unknown. And some of us that are old enough, we were AAU swimmers until 1978 when things changed. And then they broke up all of the sports into individual national governing bodies.
Mhm.
Um, but over the past few years, there's been a few of us that have spoken out and said, okay, this is an amazing opportunity for us to address a concern similar to what happened 25 years or so ago with the National Club Swimming Association, NCSAs, which there was a gap. There was no more junior nationals. It just went boop. We're going to go to senior nationals around 2000. And the reason on that was clear because USA Swimming didn't want people to hold back their people from making seniors so they could go to juniors, and it was just an absolute mess.
Yeah.
So they identified that problem, and NCSA was born, and it became from 278 swimmers or something like that to the largest 18 and under meet in the country,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful to see. But now even then, it's 18 and under, so where does a 15-year-old go?
Yeah.
So that doesn't address it anymore. So we have to look at other avenues. So really how AAU does that is again it fills that gap and really gives that opportunity to those people at those vulnerable ages and people that maybe from traditionally underserved communities
Yeah.
where you're looking at the high expenses of a country club sport. Some people think swimming is, and just say, okay, well, we can get people in for $50. We can get them to come 2, 3 times a week. And that's where the talent pool gets expanded. And we never know where the next great Olympian is going to be. It might be somebody that's, wouldn't be in the sport if it was, you have to do this and spend $1,000 to register in 3 weeks. You mentioned earlier about people, swimmers burning out. Parents burn out too. And, I put my parent hat on there too. You're sitting there and you're looking at all of these hours and all of this time. And, they may not be as committed as the child to say, I love this, I want this. And their friends are looking at them. I'm talking about the parents, and they're like, oh, another weekend in Stewart, Florida, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, how's that going for you? And they're like, oh, I really should be going to the Miami game. So you really have to take that into consideration. And until the kids buy in, like your family, our family, we are swim families and we love it and we're swim nerds. We're ready to go, but not everybody is.
Hmm.
So we have to make sure that we get the love of the sport in there and have those rungs of the ladder to
Yeah.
make them go. They're not going to jump from here to there. They're
Mhm.
not going to go from, casual swimmer to summer fink.
It also just creates that level of like another goal to strive for.
Sure.
So if you're a young swimmer and you might be wanting to reach USA Swimming or reach these meets that are USA Swimming sanctioned, it gives you another goal and another opportunity to say, hey, like I'm here right now, but I want to be here. So let's buy in, let's continue doing this. And I mean, the parent perspective is absolutely huge. I don't know how my parents did all of those 3 day, like 3 day weekends. My brother's 4 years younger than me. My sister's older than me. We were at the pool every single day. And me being a kid, I was just worried about my swim. I
Yeah.
didn't worry that my mom was in the stands for 8 plus 9 hours in the heat. And so having these opportunities for these parents to also fall in love with the sport is huge. And the cost standpoint, swimming is
Yes.
not a cheap sport. Tech suits, goggles. I mean, like you have special caps now, like even training suits and practice suits are expensive. So having those resources available and having a membership or these swim meets cost less. I know some meets you have an entry fee, every single event costs a fee. And
Mhm.
so, as I said, having an entry point for these swimmers and for these families is absolutely huge. And it's something that we should all be partnering with to help grow these grass levels of our sport.
Now, there's one other thing I want to add to that, and that is the program itself,
Hmm.
because you can begin an AAU club a lot easier than USA Swimming. Back in the old days, to start a USA Swimming club was incredibly easy. Now, I understand safe sport and everything, and we have to make sure that we do all that and take care of everybody. But the cost of an AAU club, the barriers of entry for somebody that says, you know what, I live in a traditionally underserved area, but I want to start a swim team, they don't have to go through all the levels of things that you need to do for a USA Swimming charter. So
Yeah.
you can begin with an AAU program, start these meets really easy, and then work your way up to become, and then we're again growing the sport organically.
Yeah. Um, if you could design the ideal pipeline from
Oh,
age group to Olympic level, what would it look like to you?
okay, I have spent my whole life dealing with this. And I said before that I created something called the level system.
Yeah.
And basically, what it does is it breaks down each one of the physiological, psychological, tactical, and technical areas into developmental chunks for each one of these areas. And really, it is a roadmap to take somebody from novice to where they then can be a national level swimmer.
Mhm.
And I have tweaked it over the courses of many, many decades and looked into it. I mean, we have areas like stroke scorecards where I have every stroke broken down into five elements: their underwater, their legs, their head, their arms, and their rhythm. And then they have five elements under there, and they focus in on each one of these. So as they go through the process, they can develop what they need to do. So really thinking about the perfect pipeline would be more like a level system,
Mhm.
but it would also be what we just talked about, where the barrier of entry for families and for programs is very small as you get up the food chain. So I really want to make sure that the net is wide and then the educational component is there. Now, USA Swimming over the years has done a really good job of trying to increase educational opportunities, but I still think that we're missing a lot where coaches are so well-meaning and they want to do the best by their swimmers, but they don't have the guidance
Yeah.
and they don't understand how to do it. And yes, we have USA Swimming mentors or whatever, but there's still very little in terms of the roadmap. I think if more took a look at even the American developmental model that they have on USA Swimming, where they try to do that as well, it's very similar to the level system. And just understand that this pipeline is there and ask people. I've learned a lot by asking.
Yeah.
So I think a perfect pipeline would be something where coaches had the education, parents had the education, the swimmers had the education, and they understood the levels to go from A to B to C.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, having that educational standpoint from coaches, because I mean, a lot of coaches get their start out just simply being collegiate swimmers or being involved in the sport.
Right.
And there's so many elements to coaching that you don't necessarily pick up from being a swimmer. And so
Yes.
having those educational standpoints and those mentors and asking questions is huge. But if you don't know where to go, if you don't know how to ask those questions, it's extremely challenging. And you'll see, we've talked about burnout within families, we've talked burnout within swimmers, but burnout for coaches is also just huge.
Yes.
And so that's also another factor, that USA Swimming and AAU, it's something that like we need to be focused on so that not only our swimmers and our parents, but our coaches have the resources to be
Absolutely.
successful themselves.
And I think a lot of times as coaches, we grew up in an environment where we're gritty and we work hard.
Yeah.
So, we don't feel like we're coaching unless we're working so hard and we're outworking everyone else and we're sacrificing. And there's too little, work-life balance
Yeah.
for coaches, and they need to look at that. And I'm guilty of that as well.
It's difficult not to be. I mean,
Yeah.
we always are saying like ask for help. If you need help, ask for help,
Right.
whether it's any avenue in your life. But, until you actually need the help, do you realize how difficult sometimes it is to be like, I can't figure this out on my own. I do need some outside assistance with XYZ within a program, within your personal life, within your professional life.
Sure.
And so having resources that are easily accessible is only going to help for everybody involved in the sport and everybody, for the longevity of their life as well. Moving on into some wrap up questions.
Sure.
For the 10-year-old just starting out and for their parents, what advice would you give to help them enjoy the sport, support the process, and stick with it for the long haul?
Oh my gosh. Again, I keep coming back to this three-letter word, fun.
Yeah.
And you have to have fun, you have to enjoy it and learn and be appropriate. I think that's one of the things where people learn. It's just if you're just starting out in the sport, you come 2 or 3 days a week, you're doing your 45 minutes to an hour and 15, whatever it is, learn what it is. Don't try to push too far. Now, that being said, I've been very fortunate to have some very fast little kids
Mhm.
because if you don't push them fast enough, if you don't give them what they need, then you're doing the exact same thing in reverse.
Yeah.
So you need to meet them where they are and say, okay, you're just getting into the sport, learn, enjoy. Go to these little mini meets, have fun, watch the older kids, ask questions, talk to the coach. The coach shouldn't have this, barrier in front of you and the parents. Say, hey, I'm, Cheryl's mom, I'm really having a good time. She wants to be involved in the sport. Can you give me some advice on what I should be doing? And I get questions all the time about nutrition advice,
Mhm.
sleep advice, how many meets should I go to? These are from parents that are doing it the right way. So if you're just starting out, ask questions, support your teams, find a team that kind of fits into what you're doing, like we mentioned earlier. Do your research.
Yeah.
Go to their website, read their blogs, see what they do, see if this is the right fit for your family's culture. And then do that, ask questions of other parents. Is this a screaming environment? Is this a too lax environment? Do they have seniors? Maybe I just want it, my kid just wants to do this for fitness and, maybe swim high school on their team and then
Yeah.
move on to college. What is the goal of the program? And then try to find the right fit and have fun with it.
Yeah, and I mean that educational piece, I know we keep coming back to that as well, but it
Yes.
is huge from all avenues because you may have parents who have never been involved in the sport before.
Sure.
And so they're learning everything at the same time that their child is. And so having that resource of asking questions, being like, why are you doing this? But also knowing
Right.
that you're not going to be punished for asking questions and questions are also welcomed is like a huge piece within the sport as well. Thinking back over your career, is there a favorite meet or a favorite workout set that stands out to you?
Oh gosh, favorite meat. Um, Yeah, it'd have to be 2006, when they finally won juniors
Yeah.
as a combined team at the 19 and unders. The reason why that one sticks out is we were kind of nomads. We lost one pool, we went to another one, we lost that, we did that, and then we started Tampa Bay Aquatics
Hmm.
in that little tiny pool, and then grew it. And to have these kids that started out in this little pool in Dunedin as, 5 years old and 6 years old, and then get to the point where they're 12 years later standing up as, national champions as a team was just, I get tears in my eyes thinking about it because I don't see them as 18-year-old national champions. I see them as six and under wonders that, used to do 25s and, whoa, you broke 15. And just
Yeah.
knowing what they did from the time they were little babies to the time that they were, proto adults, moving on to that. So I think that one and looking back now as I think about it, that kind of encapsulates everything that we just talked about
Mhm.
because you're starting out with, six and unders, and then you're moving all the way to the elite highest level of the sport for age group swimmers, which is becoming a national champion as a
Yeah.
team. And all those phases in between are everything that we just talked about. So for me, that meet was kind of the culmination, but then it also gave a little bit more gravitas when I would speak to people. Whereas before, when I was younger and I would say the same things that we're talking about now, people would look at me and go, yeah, yeah, you long-haired young guy. Because I used to have long hair. And it was one of these things. And now people are like, oh, whatever you say, so it's a little bit different after those things. So yeah, that was special. It was fun. It was family and it was swamily and it encapsulated the whole developmental process
Yeah,
from beginning to end.
absolutely. And I mean, also as a coach, just as you said, seeing those young swimmers who
Yeah.
are just doing 25s across the pool to seeing where
Yeah.
they've taken the sport. Like, I can't imagine how proud you are of each and every one of those athletes and of all the athletes that you've come into contact with and continue to work with. Because,
And, and the
we see
coaches.
pictures of people standing on podiums, but unless you're actually really involved in the journey, like, you see the hard work and the effort that it took to get to that place.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful and great coaches along the way that were all part of the journey. And one of the things I was just speaking with a new parent of an exceptional 9-year-old
Mhm.
was you're going to have many people in the process. I'm not the world's greatest, land trainer. I can do these things and I can do that, but we need a team.
Yeah.
You can't be elite with just one person telling you everything. I am not going to think that I am the world's greatest at everything. So we had teams of people that helped create that and looking at them celebrate and looking at the parents in the sand celebrate and looking at, everyone celebrate, my goodness. And then every big meet after that, it kind of just put everything into perspective for me
Yeah.
where this isn't fun.
No, absolutely. Last question for you, just for fun.
Sure.
What's one thing about you most people in the swimming world would not know?
Rock on. I used to be a professional musician. Yeah, I have, tons of guitars and basses and still produce some music and I had a small record label at one point.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I had to make a choice at around 30 whether I was going to be a musician or a swim coach.
Swimming
And
lifelong.
I went ahead and, we had the offer, and I said, if I do this, I have to go tour. I have to, give up coaching. And I looked around and I was like, the lifestyle versus, this lifestyle. And looking back, I know I made the right choice. I feel like I've made a more of an impact on the community and people's lives rather than songs, but music will always be a part of me.
Yeah. No, it also speaks to, I do find that a lot of, successful coaches and successful athletes, they are more than just swimming. There's so many talents that are behind the person as well that, you may not know about. I know Elizabeth Beisel, she plays violin,
Yes.
guitar,
Faisal.
and music. There's so many things that we don't know about our athletes and our coaches that are just so amazing. And it's fun to learn about that each and every single one.
Yeah, Beisel was amazing. A story about that, I think it was 2006 or 2005. She was the only one from her team. She was 11 years of age at
Yeah.
nationals or juniors. And we had some kids that were from New England that knew her, and she became like our little sister for
Oh,
that meet. And ever since then, she's been so wonderful to all of us. I just love her as a human,
yeah.
and the fact that she's just so amazing as a musician as well just brings it closer to my heart too.
Oh, I'm sure, musicians have to stay united, but
Shout out to Beisel.
shout out to Beisel. Just a second to also just thank you for taking the time to sit down and run through all these questions. I know it's gonna help coaches, it's gonna help athletes, and it's gonna help parents just listening to each and every one of these conversations. So thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today.
And Summer, thank you for this. I think it's important that you use this venue to bring more people into the sport and to educate the community, especially the families, on what to do. So thank you for all you do, and your family is wonderful. I'm so glad that they're part of our sport, and I consider you all now part of my big swamily again.
Yes, yes. No,
Okay.
thank you. Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. I know that I had so many aha moments within my conversation with Coach Rich. There's so many key pieces of information that will help parents, will help swimmers, will help coaches, whether it's how to structure your workouts, how to give that individualized attention to each and every swimmer, or even how to look out for the signs of burnout. I know burnout is huge in the sport, whether you're an athlete, a parent, or a coach. As always, a huge shout out to International Swim Coaches Association and also Swimming World Magazine. Without their help, this podcast would not be possible. If you would like to stay up to date on all things Lane 1 Making Waves, please, please, please like, subscribe, share with all your swimming friends. I will link all of our social media handles here and also put them in the description below. So with that, I will catch you guys next time.